Local history. Local culture. Local events. Your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Maciol is our guest. He's the Chief Law Enforcement Officer in Oneida County. We're going to talk to him about a variety of law enforcement issues. He has been the Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Well, save me from racking my mind. You got sworn in when, Sheriff?
January 1st of 2011.
Okay, I'll let everybody else do the math on that. And who swore you in?
Oh boy, because I've been reelected a couple times. Initially, Judge Dwyer swore me in the first time. And it's kind of funny, we look back at the pictures, and my oldest was the master of ceremonies for my oldest, who was just a young teen at the time.
Yeah.
Now she's a police officer herself, working at the Utica Police Department.
Right.
But yeah, it's over almost 11 years.
I'm curious, you mentioned your daughter, and I've seen her on the job in Utica. Was a conscious decision made for her not to be on the Oneida County Sheriff's Office because her father is who he is?
No, well, it's one of those things where yes and no. She is very independent, and she wanted to make a name for herself, to be herself, because, I've been the sheriff for, like I said, 11 years so far. Prior to that, I've been, a police officer for over 32 years. As you know, earlier on in my career, I was the mayor of New York Mills for about 10 years. So kind of everywhere I went with my children, as they grew up, they were always known as, the sheriff's daughter, the mayor's daughter, or son, whatever the case may be. So she wanted to make a name for herself, and she felt that, if she ever got something, she would, people would say, well, you just got that because your dad's the sheriff. But no, she's doing very well. She actually started working for me in the beginning, not in the road patrol division, but when she graduated from college, her first job was with the sheriff's office as a corrections officer in the jail. And then she certainly left that open as an option, but when she was offered a position at the Utica Police Department, she took it, and she's extremely happy there, extremely happy.
Speaking of the corrections department, I see you had a swearing-in ceremony for some new corrections officers, yes?
Yes, we recently held a academy graduation at Schaefer Theater at MVCC, where our police academy is held. There were 14 corrections officers that graduated, and we actually had a couple from Madison County that joined us, and a couple from Lewis County this class around. We're very fortunate. We have an awesome relationship with MVCC. Our police academy is held on the campus, as it has been for long before I came around, and we have a great training facility there. So we open it up to our neighbors. But these officers, actually all of them had been on the job for a little while, not a long time. But the Commission of Corrections allows us to work a corrections officer for up to a year before they get their training. So as you know, we do continuous recruitment for the corrections division. So as we're hiring people, they start working right away, and then when we get enough on the job new recruits, then we hold an academy. So it's an 8-week, very intense training, and we're like I said, very fortunate to graduate just over a dozen of them.
I know it's been a challenge recruiting corrections officers for the Oneida County. It's not technically the Oneida County Jail; it's the Oneida County Correctional Facility, correct?
Yeah, the people who've been around a while call it the Oneida County Jail, but the appropriate name is Correctional Facility.
And I think you've had a challenge, have you not? Because we've got so many state prisons around.
Well, we've got a lot of things happening. Recruitment and retention is a struggle for not only the Oneida County Sheriff's Office, but sheriff's offices across the state. A lot of different factors here. Number one is it's just a difficult, challenging career, especially now. The past few years have not been, in the media portrayed as a great career to get into. And, I argue that point all the time, because unfortunately, in many cases, a lot of the stuff we see, it's only a small fraction of what's really out there. I mean, I am confident that 99% of the community, they truly believe in what we do, they support what we do, but unfortunately what we see on TV is that 1% of the negativity. So that's a driving factor. State corrections pays significantly more than county corrections, and obviously they have a different retirement plan and a different medical benefit package, so that becomes a huge challenge for us. So all those things put together with, we got to throw in there bail reform, because that certainly caused a definitely it's been an obstacle for us to
I want to
get by.
talk to you about bail reform later on in the show. One of the things that I noted, I was looking through your website the other day, I was kind of surprised at the number of supervisory people in your office that have come up through corrections. Former Sheriff Dan Middaugh came up through corrections.
That is correct.
Chief Owen, if I recall correctly, came
Started in corrections
Yeah,
originally.
yeah.
Yep. And again, now, I never worked in the correctional side of the law enforcement family. And shame on me, I say this all the time, I never knew what really happens inside the Oneida County Correctional Facility until I became the sheriff. My whole career, I brought defendants to the back door, basically, with a commitment order after they've been arraigned, and I'd drive away, not knowing what really goes on inside there between, like I said, not only the dangers, but the medical unit, the food service, the educational programs. There's so much that happens. It's a miniature city back there. And like I said, any chance I get publicly, and I'll take the opportunity right now to say thank you to the men and women who work inside that facility. It's easy for us to drive by the jail and say, oh, there's the jail, but what's really happening in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nights, weekends, holidays, the corrections officers, and especially now with the number of vacancies that we have, these folks are putting in 12, 16-hour days, and having to give up a lot of personal commitments and events with their families to basically keep that facility safe and secure, which in turn keeps our community safe and secure.
I see that you had a ceremony, remembrance ceremony, up at the law enforcement building in Oriskany the other day to honor the memory of Kurt Wyman.
Yes.
How'd that go?
Very well. As you know, last year, due to the pandemic, we still held our ceremony because I made a commitment to never forget that horrible day, June 7th of 2011. And again, this marked the 10th anniversary of Deputy Wyman being shot and killed in the line of duty while on a domestic call. Well, started as a domestic call, ended up as a standoff. But we held a ceremony outside the Deputy Kurt B. Wyman Law Enforcement Building. That portion of our complex, as you know, after Kurt was killed, was named in Kurt's honor by the Oneida County Board of Legislators, so it's an official building name change. And as you can see across the top, the front of the building, it's named in Kurt's memory. The parents of Kurt, they weren't with us this year because they were actually vacationing in Florida with much of their family. As you know, also, that tragic day that Kurt was killed was the same day that his wife gave birth to their second child. So they were marking Addie's 10th birthday with a trip to Disney in Florida. So they it's a tough day for the family because not only are they remembering their son and husband who was killed in the line of duty, but they're also celebrating Addie's 10th birthday. So it's just a tough day.
When we come back, you mentioned bail reform. When we come back, that's one of the things we'll talk about, bail reform in New York State. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Maciol is our guest. We're talking law enforcement. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Maciol is our guest. Before the break, Sheriff, we were talking about bail reform. And bail reform, I remember when you came on the show way back when, and you were very upset, or you never get upset, but upset for you in terms of that bail reform because you were predicting what was going to happen.
Sure.
And it's come true, has it not?
It's come true.
Yeah.
You see major cities across this whole state, actually any city, Their gun violence is through the roof. Shots fired calls through the roof. Some of the more serious crimes, numbers are up across this entire state. Especially, I mean, we're even though our numbers are high, we're nothing compared to what you're seeing in Syracuse and Rochester and Buffalo. And again, this is part of it, and no one's denying the fact that we needed to reform our criminal justice system. Every system, I think, needs to be looked at to make sure that we're doing things appropriately and proper. But when you make a drastic change, like was made a couple years ago by the New York State Legislature, with no meetings or consultations with law enforcement or prosecutors or defense attorneys for that matter, initially we were hit hard by bail reform when we were having to let people go for committing second-degree burglaries, going into an occupied home, and they were given an appearance ticket. It was crazy. I mean, we lobbied hard against that initially. Then when it rolled out, we quickly saw the side effects of that. We again continued to lobby, and we did get some assistance from the legislature. And our folks here locally, I want to stress that, locally, our state assembly members, our senators, they've been on board with us out of the gate. It's just, unfortunately, things are controlled by
New York City, right?
New York City for the most part. But we were able to make some changes, some significant changes, although we still have a long ways to go. And when you look at, like I said, there's still some serious crimes where people are being released, they're mandated, they have to be released. And all we're looking for, we could actually simplify this because we have lawmakers sitting at the table who've never been in law enforcement, who've never prosecuted a case, who've never defended a case for that matter. And they're coming up with a list of charges that they think people should be, bail should be set on them or shouldn't. Let's not do that because every case is different. Let's simplify this. Let's give judges the discretion to decide if someone should be held on bail or not. Because again, someone could be charged with a minor offense, but there's been a series of offenses, there's been a progression of charges climbing up the ladder where you could see something's going to happen. Or there may be a domestic situation where a person, it's clear that if they don't get held, that victim is going to be in danger. Then you know what? Then that person should be held. There may be a more serious case, which there are no victims, let's say actual people as victims. There may be some other circumstances. Maybe the person's going through a difficult time where even though they've been charged with a serious crime, maybe they shouldn't have bail placed on them because of some family commitments at home where they have to keep working so they have money to put food on the table for their family. So we, in a perfect world, we would love to see a judge have discretion where they'd be able to decide if a person should be held or not.
The bail reform, which is kind of an oxymoron, bail reform, I think, but is there any thing in the future that you see coming down the road that might change that, or is this the way it's going to be?
We continue to lobby. We've just had so many, I don't want to use the word fights because I don't mean that, but we've had so many debates on issues, whether we're talking bail reform, the legalization of marijuana, going through police reform is another whole big issue. Again, we're not against these things. I don't want people to think that, but these are things that have to be thought out and have to be done so that we're not putting our communities in more risk than they have been prior to them. Like I said, we've seen some pretty significant spikes in crime, and we directly relate it back to bail reform.
Response time in Oneida County, big county. Limited number of road patrol officers. Can you give me any kind of a feel for how long it takes? Is there an average response time, for example, for a call that comes in? Is there no such thing as an average?
We try to, but the way it's mapped out for us, we have our county set up into 8 patrol zones. And it's by call volume. So you pick a zone, Zone 5, for example. That's like the town of Steuben, town of Forestport, a very rural part of our county. Very, very low call volume up there. So that deputy is going to be covering a much bigger area. The problem is, if they're in Barneville and there's a call on 28 in Forestport, it's going to take some time to get there. So again, but we concentrate more of our staff in the busier parts of the county. But that's why we also have field offices. We have our headquarters in Oriskany. We also have a field office in Camden, Barneville, and Waterville, so that we have deputies placed strategically in the county so that they don't have to respond to Forestport from the law enforcement building in Oriskany. We work 12-hour shifts. We switch shifts at 6 o'clock. The state 6 and 6. The state police, they do 12-hour shifts, but they switch shifts at 7 o'clock. So we're not both off the road at the same time. They have, as you know, substations in Sylvan Beach, Lee Center, so we get Remsen. So we're trying to strategically place our people, both agencies, because we work very well together, so that we can cut down on response time to get to an emergency as quick as we can.
So I guess there really is no such thing as an average response time.
No, if we had a concentrated area, and I don't want to compare ourselves to other places, but like a city, it's much easier because they have this set area. Oneida County is 1,250 square miles, 26 towns, 17 villages. I can't predict what's going to happen in one place, and if we're all focused on a major thing there, if we have another major incident, we have to quickly redeploy things. So that's why, it's key that our supervisors, which they do a very good job at, stay on top of things. So if something's happening in the western part of the county, they'll redeploy some of the other cars and move them out a little bit so that those places get equal coverage.
And where do those calls get answered? Is it at the 911 the 911 facility?
The 911 center is on our campus at the sheriff's office, but it's not part of the sheriff's office. Everyone thinks it is because we share, like I said, the same campus, but they're under the Office of Emergency Services, and every call that comes in for law enforcement, fire, EMS goes to that one consolidated 911 center.
Including Utica?
Including Utica, yep. Everything goes there, and then there's dispatchers, which are all county employees. Those dispatchers, send the closest car. All of our patrol cars in all of the agencies throughout the county have what we call AVLs on them, automatic vehicle locators. So in the 911 center, they have a screen, and they can see where all the police cars are. So if there's a call for service at, on Main Street in Taberg, they'll be able to see which cars are the closest, and they're going to send those cars to that call if it's an in-progress call.
Kind of like a tracking device?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another thing I want to talk to you about after the break, Sheriff, is body cameras. Let's see where the Oneida County Sheriff's Office is on body cameras. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Maciol is our guest. We're talking law enforcement. We'll be back after this short break. And welcome back, everybody. Oneida County Sheriff Rob Maciol is our guest. We're talking law enforcement. Sheriff, the COVID pandemic that we've gone through, I know there had to be law enforcement at those vaccine sites and other sites. Was that your responsibility?
Yes. The sheriff's office, right out of the gate, we pledged to the county executive that we'd be there to help with whatever they needed. So we actually, any vaccine site, from the very first time we had one, right up until, today, you'd either see a deputy sheriff there, possibly a corrections officer, a special patrol officer, any of our staff that we could deploy for a couple reasons. I mean, obviously they assisted with security, first and foremost, should there be a problem. But they're also there for a calming effect. I mean, people waiting in line, a lot of tensions, and potentially could be just like we have SPOs at the Department of Motor Vehicles, our special patrol officers. Same thing. They're there obviously if there's a problem, but we're also there to, like I said, assist people through the process, answer questions, assist the staff, and then also transportation of the vaccine depending on the quantity. Law enforcement's required to have some involvement there. So we've been involved in that. There were also countless, I can't even tell you how many over the last year and a half, food distributions that we assisted on. Tractor trailer loads of food would come in for those folks in the community less fortunate. We've gone to apartment complexes in Utica. We've done churches. We've done out at the Turning Stone at the vaccine sites. We've done milk giveaways with the Dairy Association. Again, assisting them because we do have personnel available, and at the same time, it's giving you a level of security on site at all these things. Because as we know, sure, we're going through a very challenging time with a pandemic, but there's also other things in society where we never had to worry about security, where security has been on site at these events. But it's just a fact of life, unfortunately, that we have now. We're just very fortunate that we've been a partner in all this from the get-go.
I mentioned body cameras. Does the United County Sheriff's patrol officers wear them?
We do. Not only do they on patrol, but in the correctional facility. We were the second agency in the Oneida County to get body cameras. Utica was the first, Utica Police Department. We followed suit right behind them. Not many agencies have body cameras. It's a very expensive venture. It's one of the most expensive ventures that I've gone down, but I can tell you this, it is probably one of the most important ventures and equipment purchases that we've made. It is probably the one single thing that will build the most trust with your community. It's helped us in countless court cases, having everything live available to you. It's also assisted our members on personnel complaints. If someone alleges that they did or didn't do something, I can bring that footage up and I can answer that question. I can tell if there's an officer that may need some training or discipline in some cases that may happen. But again, like I said, very expensive project we worked on, but it's one that I think is one of the best things we've done. We're going to be expanding this year because we want every member of the sheriff's office that's in uniform to have a body camera on, and so again, it's been a great tool for us, and I'm like I said, I should have done it long ago.
Are there cameras on the cars themselves?
Our DWI cars have dash cams so that they can actually get a second camera footage of the field sobriety test going on, but the fleet of our cars, we have over 100 cars in our fleet, so I don't have cameras on all of them. But again, all through our complex now, cameras on the outside, cameras on the inside, cameras throughout the correctional facility. Obviously, they've been there a long time, but it's become a way of life for law enforcement. One of the changes that we've faced that we embrace, and because again, the camera can be your best friend.
Yeah, I would want one.
Yeah,
as long as I was doing everything right. I'm curious though, Sheriff, why is it so expensive? I mean, you would think, all right, you buy a camera, you put it on, and
sure, the technology is cheap. The camera's cheap. When I say, I don't mean cheap, but I mean you could buy the camera for $300 or $400. It's the storage, because we are a government entity. There are many cases where this camera footage can be foiled, so we have to keep the footage for, depending on the situation, it may be 120 days, it may be indefinite. If it's a criminal case, if it's a civil case where it ends up being some type of litigation. So not only, like I said, the camera and the charging stations, those are relatively inexpensive compared to what I have to pay per year for storage in an iCloud of all this footage. I mean, you talk an agency that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we've got the camera rolling nearly all that time on 90-some deputies, 30 or 40 corrections officers at a time. All that footage that's being captured gets downloaded at the end of the day, and I'm not an IT person, so I hope I'm using the right technology or the right terminology. But that's all stored in an iCloud, and we literally pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep our video footage stored.
We're into the summer season. The Sheriff's Department has a what do you call it? Marine Division?
Our recreational unit,
Right.
the unit that our boats fall under, our marine unit, our recreation unit also includes our snowmobiles in the wintertime. But I have to correct you quick because you said Sheriff's Department. It's the Sheriff's Office.
I very seldom make that
that's
mistake
okay.
anymore.
But we patrol, obviously, all the waterways in Oneida County.
Yeah.
We have 5 boats. We have a couple jet skis. We have several deputies that are assigned to the Marine unit in the summertime. Obviously, we patrol Oneida Lake, Delta Lake. We have Otter Lake. We have White Lake. We have the Barge Canal, Mohawk, portions of the Mohawk River. Obviously, there's countless ponds around that we don't patrol, but if there's an emergency, we respond. Our main goal is to keep the people on the water safe. We're out on the waterways as much as we can. Most of our time is spent on Oneida Lake, Sylvan Beach, because it's our biggest body of water. It's a 26-mile long, 3-mile wide lake that actually encompasses 4 counties, but we have the busiest end of the lake. But again, we deal with all kinds of things, rescues. We assist boaters. We make arrests, unfortunately, from time to time. Like driving a car while intoxicated, operating a vessel while intoxicated is not tolerated here. We have 0 tolerance for that, and our goal is to keep people safe.
We got 20 seconds.
Sure.
Explain why it's not a department, as I incorrectly said.
Sure.
It's an office.
A department under the county government would be something, a department that answers to the county executive, let's say. Sheriff's office, I'm independently elected. My bosses are the people of Oneida County every 4 years. So the sheriff, like the clerk and like the district attorney, we are independently elected, so it's the sheriff's office, not sheriff's department.
Gotcha. Hadn't made that mistake
That's
in
okay.
a long time.
Yep.
Good to see you again.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Come back sooner rather than later. I hope.
Anytime.
Okay. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll be back next week. Don't forget CNYhomepage.com. There's lots of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.